Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Yesterworld Podcast. Now, before we jump in, I wanted to quickly talk about NordVPN. They're a continual sponsor of Yesterworld because every sign up through the link on screen and in the description or using code Yesterworld, they give me a little bonus. And the reason I use NordVPN, a lot of people think a VPN is only if you're pirating movies or trying to access programs from another region. And while you can use it for that, the reason I use it is because I had never realized just how vulnerable my information and everyone's information is on public Wi-Fi. Whether you're on your laptop or your cell phone, anytime you're searching the web, anytime you're putting in any passwords or credit card numbers or banking information, anyone can access that. And NordVPN, what it does is it encrypts the data going from your phone. And even on your own Wi-Fi, stops your ISP from tracking what websites you go to and what you're looking at. And it's especially important if you're at a coffee shop on your laptop, or you're at a theme park on your iPhone, and you're dealing with anything that has to do with passwords or any kind of information you wouldn't want anyone else to have. So if you want to start protecting yourself like I decided to, go to nordvpn.com/yesterworld, and you can save 77% off a 3-year plan, and it amounts to like a cup of coffee per month. So it's a small price to pay, knowing that your information is kept secure. Now, with all of that being said, joining me today again is the wonderful Alicia Stella, and she is the go-to person for anything regarding theme park rumors, especially when it comes to Universal Studios, which is what we are talking about today. So without further ado, hello, Alicia. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Before we jump into talking about theme park rumors, I wanted to say congratulations for hitting 10,000 subscribers. Like, that's really cool, and that's really awesome to see.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. 'Cause I've had my channel for several years, and it's starting to actually kind of take off lately as I've been talking more and more about theme park news and rumors.
Well, that's what everybody... I mean, you had... I forget, was it Jurassic Park or Harry Potter where in like 4 days it hit like 100K?
That was the Harry Potter one. I think people are hungry for information on that because Universal hasn't said much.
Right. Well, yeah, and that's what we were talking about a little bit before we started recording, how Walt Disney World and they have such different styles in terms of how they announce projects. And Disney World's very like, oh, here's all of what we're doing, here's the plans. And
Yeah.
Universal tends to be more, they hold off until it's pretty much about to start construction, really, I feel
Or
like.
even later.
Yeah.
With the Skull Island Reign of Kong, they didn't tell us what it actually was till like 2 months before it opened.
I remember that because we all
very
knew.
weird.
We're like, we know what it is. And then
Yeah, they're building the temple gates. I
Right.
think we can figure it out. But yeah, Disney announced they have like 16 rides coming in the next 4 years, so we have a pretty good idea. But I think when Universal announced the first Wizarding World of Harry Potter was coming, that was like 3 years in advance, and a lot of people held off on their vacation, and they saw a dip in attendance. So ever since then, they've been very concerned and conservative about when they announce certain projects. Today, they just announced the new Lagoon show.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be at Universal Studios Florida. And they kind of mentioned that a new show was going to replace the old cinematic spectacular, but they didn't actually announce any details of it until the month it's going to start. It's probably going to start later this month. It just says starting this summer. And it's like, well, it kind of already is summer.
Yeah, I mean, but that makes sense because I know for me, when I was planning like my trip to Universal the first time, I think me and my friend did that where it was like, oh, we'll wait until Harry Potter's open, and so otherwise we probably would have gone the year before. But you want to save up that money, to have a really good vacation. So it makes sense on their end, but.
And with the Harry Potter coaster opening at Hogsmeade, they made an announcement that Dragon Challenge was going to close back in September, and they just briefly said that it was going to be replaced with something that's a Wizarding World of Harry Potter attraction that'll be the most immersive and highly themed coaster they've ever done. And that's about all they've said about it.
Which is to me, that's very intriguing because, I mean, I guess Forbidden Journey wouldn't be considered a coaster, but Gringotts would be, right? That's considered a coaster.
Yeah, I mean, it's on a coaster track.
So, and to me, that's that's one of the best themed attractions in terms of the queue. And,
oh, yeah, definitely.
I mean, you really feel like, you're there, and just the attention to detail when you're walking through the bank. It's ridiculous. It's like so crazy how they, it's like I love Disney like so much. Indiana Jones is my favorite ride with the immersion that they do with that. But Universal's really stepping up their game and giving us like Temple of Doom like immersion in some of their attractions, which is fun.
Well, and I think a lot of people were disappointed that it ended up being a little more screen heavy than they were expecting.
Right.
Because when you see the Gringotts, like the coaster type track in the movie, you think it's going to be very coaster like ride. Mm-hmm. And with it stopping and starting and stopping at different screens, I think some people were disappointed. And also, Universal got a lot of complaints that Forbidden Journey isn't that great for smaller kids. So they actually maybe tone down the coaster elements of Gringotts, even though there's a couple pretty somewhat thrilling elements. It's still pretty tame for a coaster.
Right, and that makes sense. Because, I remember when I first rode Forbidden Journey, I think we were there maybe a year and a half after it opened, and I intentionally stayed away from any kind of like spoilers or what the ride was really about. And when I rode it, it was just such a crazy experience. You're that part when you go upside down is so intense, like with the Whomping Willow, because you're just like, you don't expect to go that far back on that kind of seating arrangement. And it was just so intense. And it was like the perfect blend of practical ride effects and screen technology, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, and it was very unique. It still is very unique at the time. Gringotts has some unique elements where the screen elements, the coaster stops and the actual track pieces move like a simulator. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like the track itself is a motion base. And then when you move on, you're still on a rotating, essentially with the Mummy coaster, but it rotates. Right. So it's incorporating a lot of technologies, but still Forbidden Journey blows me away.
So what are good segue into, you did it earlier, I always do it. Dueling Dragons was the Harry Potter version, right?
No, Dueling Dragons was the Lost Continent version, the original version. Dragon Challenge.
I always do that. I don't know why, because it has dragons in it, so I get mixed up.
And I was thinking about it earlier. I actually kind of miss that area of Lost Continent. When the park first opened, it was called Merlinwood. Mm-hmm. And Merlinwood was because like the bottom half of Lost Continent still exists today, but the top half was Merlinwood. It was more of like Knights of the Round Table type and medieval structures.
And the Hogshead was a medieval themed restaurant, or like a fantasy restaurant with like inside a tree or something like that.
Yes. And it's very similar because it's in the same spot. That back porch is exactly the same as it has always looked. They just repainted the brickwork. I think they even utilized the same kitchen and everything. So it's interesting to go in there and kind of still remember what it used to look like.
I wish I had that. Like my first trip was in, whenever, like a year. So 2013 probably, or 14. But I really wish I had, like last time when we talked about Confrontation. I really wish I had. Luckily, I got to ride Jaws, but I really wish I had, Confrontation. But even like in Islands of Adventure, because all I know of it is Harry Potter. Like, that, like you said, the first part is the Lost Continent, and then your Harry Potter, and it doesn't have the medieval stuff, anymore.
Right. The Flight of the Hippogriff was Flying Unicorn. And it's the same coaster. It just has different theming, and the trains look a little different. Right. They used to look like steel unicorns, and now they're wicker hippogriffs.
Right.
And Dueling Dragons, when it, I think I went to the employee preview with a friend who was working there at the time in 98. Is that when it opened? 99? And that was actually the first real coaster I ever went on. I don't even think I'd been on Space Mountain yet.
Oh, wow.
Because I was always scared of roller coasters when I was younger. And in high school, when Dueling Dragons, when the park was just about to open, my friend's like, no, you have to go on it. We're going on everything. So I went on it, and it was the first coaster I ever done. I did the Fireside, and like I was blown away. Like it was terrifying going up the lift hill and everything, but that ride, when it was dueling, was like a whole different kind of experience than in the later years. Just in the queue alone, like I remember waiting 3 hours in that queue. And back then there was thousands of skulls, like human skulls in the caves. And when you first walk in, there's Merlin's talking to you and you hear his voice, and there'd be a room that's like fire, and then another room that's ice, and the ice room, everything's covered in icicles, and it's actually freezing in there. And now it just has, well, and until it closed, it had the floating candles, and they just kind of darkened everything. They ripped out all the skulls. The big doors, they used to bang. And that carried over to when Potter took over, where it's like these giant doors, and you would assume there's dragons behind it because you hear the dragons. But I think some idiot put their head up against it.
Of course.
And it injured them, so they no longer would.
It's always, it's like, I understand from a liability perspective, but it just sucks when you have a really cool, innovative gag or whatever you want to call it, and then someone just, like, I understand, but it's always just like, oh, man, because there's so many of, that'd actually be a fun video to explore, like, all those little tiny details that are shut down because of
safety reasons.
Yeah. Like
that lasted more than a decade, you know, it lasted into the Potter transition.
Like even in Temple of Doom, in one of my videos, I talk about it briefly, but in the room where the blocks, you know, that look like they're coming from the ceiling. There was you know, because in the movie, when you step on the triangle, like stones on the ground, you know, it causes something to happen. And in the ride, there was going to be like this little, I think it was like a 1.5 inch piece that rose above the ground. And if a guest stepped on it, then, you know, one of the blocks would look like it was going to fall. But I guess I've heard
they would trip on it though.
Yeah, I've heard two versions. One was that people were tripping on the switch on the ground, and then the other version was just that they were afraid, like if a parent had their kids on their shoulder, that, you know, maybe their head would bump into it or something like that. But it was only active for like it was only for like preview, or not even previews. I think it was just for the technical like rehearsals, and they shaved it down. And one of the stones you can kind of see which one it was. But anyway, so yeah, and then they used to have knights, like skewered knights, or maybe I'm thinking of Animal Kingdom.
Animal Kingdom, yeah, the cave.
Because there was a rumor, I don't think it's true, but that when they got rid of those knights from the River Cruise ride, you know, the Dragon Cave, that they went to Universal. But I think I always thought that was just kind of a rumor someone made up. Yeah,
I don't think that's true. But there was frozen and burnt up knights in the two rooms of the queue. There was like a full coat of arms riding a horse that's frozen above you in the queue, and it was pretty impressive.
Well, the other rumor, of course, was, and not actually, it's more of a kind of like between fact and rumor, that when Beastly Kingdom went, you know, they pulled the plug on it, that Universal was like, hey guys, why don't you come over to Universal? And a lot of them still had like some of the ideas and the plans. And so, I mean,
a suspended coaster was going to be one of the main attractions at Beastly Kingdom.
Right.
And there's the story that Eisner toured Islands of Adventure, and that was the day that it officially died, and they gave up on Beastly Kingdom because they're like, well, it would look like we're copying them now.
Because a lot of those people that were working on Beastly Kingdom, I read, just was like, all right, you're gone. Or they were put on kind of like a limbo of like, oh, we'll hire you back when we start doing this again. So a lot of them were kind of out of a job and we're like, all right, I guess I'll go to Universal, you know?
What's funny is I always think about how that whole concept of a land is just cursed. It never came to fruition, and now it's Pandora in the one park. And when it finally did come to fruition in this park with unicorns and dragons, it gets replaced with Harry Potter. So
Right.
it is truly the lost continent.
Not
It
meant to
cannot-
be.
Yeah.
So then what's the scoop on the new or what's it gonna I mean, is there any more news on that, on what it's gonna be like, the
Oh
coaster?
yeah. Well, what's interesting is because the other one was a very tall, loud steel, two steel suspended coasters, and it definitely kind of broke the immersion of the new Hogsmeade Village.
Mm-hmm.
When you're walking by and you have this like Six Flags style
Right.
roller coaster right there. So I think it was always in the plans to remove it and put something else here. And even in the early concept art for the land, if you look to the right where there should be dueling dragons, there was just trees. And I think that J.K. Rowling and Warner Brothers are getting their wish, and we're going to see, thousands of trees planted here in a very low to the ground roller coaster that's more blending in with the area.
Because it's like indoor outdoor, right? Both
Yeah,
kinda...
I'd say it's mostly outdoors. It's going to have three individual indoor scenes that are spread out. So instead of like a large show building, it's three smaller buildings.
So it's like indoor, outdoor, kind of in between.
Yeah, but for the majority of the track, it's going to be outside. I think people were misreporting because Universal has called it a highly themed coaster. People have just assumed that means it's going to be all inside. But
Right.
I would say Thunder Mountain or Expedition Everest are highly themed coasters,
Right,
and
yeah.
more than half of it takes place outside.
So do we know anything more about like the story, like what it's going to be about? Because every ride has a story, like, Forbidden Journey,
don't know.
Gringotts, or there
I've been
rumors?
following the project for about a year now, since before Dragon Challenge closed. And I've been piecing together little bits of rumors and pieces of information here and there. So I've kind of figured out what most of the story is, or at least how it's all going to tie together. And it definitely looks like the star of the attraction is going to be Hagrid. I can go through it scene by scene.
Oh, yeah.
Based
I mean,
on the track layout.
I mean, yeah. I mean, of course, everyone knows it's all, kind of, I assume, more speculation / rumors. So, but
Yeah.
but it's always fun to talk about and then see what eventually does happen, whether
Yes.
it becomes that or something else. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear
Sure.
the scene by scene breakdown.
Well, the old Q building has they kept it during all of the construction, but they kind of gutted it, and they're using the old load unload stations as the new stations for this one, but they connected them together. It's because it's only one coaster now instead of two.
Oh, okay.
So what used to be the load unload for the Fire Dragon or the Chinese Fireball is now just the load station for the new coaster,
Oh,
and the blue side is now the unload station.
I'm glad. I'm glad they're trying something different. It would have been like, rather than just kind of be like, oh, we're going to do another variation of, kind of the race between each other kind of thing.
Yeah, I think, well, when they redid the Hulk coaster, it was they turned their attention to this one, and it was either we're going to retrack this or we're going to replace it with something completely different. And I'm kind of glad they're going in a different direction, even though it was my first coaster, and
Right.
I got a little sentimental about it. But when it stopped dueling, it lost a little bit of its magic.
Did they stop doing the dueling part?
It was still dueling when it opened as a Harry Potter ride, but a couple people were injured due to loose articles, and even with the metal detectors, it's just for safety's sake. It was reprogrammed to never allow for dueling again.
So you'd have one launch, and then they'd wait the safe
stagger
period,
it.
and yeah, because
Exactly.
I honestly don't. I think I rode it like once or twice on my first and second visit, so I don't remember. I think the first time might have been the dueling, and then I don't know. It depends when they stopped it.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot less impressive or dynamic when they stopped dueling it. I remember I used to go on it. I would get angry. I'd be like, oh, they didn't time it right. And like, I'd be angry that it didn't duel. And then that became the norm. And I was like, I'm never going to get used to this.
Yeah, that always seems to happen.
So You load on the train at the old fire station, and it's going now. The coaster's going the opposite direction, so it's gonna start going out the building where the fire dragon used to end,
Mm-hmm.
and most of the track's gonna be like kind of low to the ground, but there's gonna be a lot of launches, so no lift hills or anything like
Hmm.
that. So it's gonna be a lot of fast parts,
Right.
and from everything, I haven't gotten any kind of confirmation on this, but everyone keeps saying that the coaster trains are going to be like Hagrid's motorbike with the sidecar.
Okay.
I don't know if that means it's like 6 motorbikes in a row and everyone's getting in a motorbike that's connected, or maybe it's a train being pulled by one motorbike.
Hey, it could be like an ET kind of thing where everyone has their own bike, like a bike and
Right.
then the side bike and then behind them, because I think that's kind of how the Beastly Kingdom coaster was going to be like pod wise. It was going to be like
Yeah.
everyone kind of in their own little individual thing. So I could
So
see that.
I think it's going to be very similar to Cheetah Hunt. I don't think it's going to be like an actual like Tron light cycle where you sit on a bike. I think it might just look like a bike, but it's actually just normal seating,
Hmm.
based on some of the things that happen on the ride. So the first scene, you're going to turn out of the building and you're outside, but it's going to feel very themed. The example I use is the outdoor scene on Thunder Mountain with like the flooded village, the flooded town.
Right.
Like that's a highly themed coaster that happens to also be outside. And I don't think Universal's ever really done that before.
Hmm.
They've done, lots of themed indoor coasters and then barely themed outside coasters, like Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket or Hulk doesn't really have the theming outside that the Mummy or Gringotts does inside. So this will be kind of a new thing for them. And the first scene is going to have you coming face to face with the flying Weasley car.
Hmm.
So like you're turning a corner and it's coming at you, and you're gonna like it's kind of wibbly wobbling, and from the track it looks like there's some banking here. So you're wibbly wobbling, and then you turn away from each other like a little game of chicken.
Hmm.
And that's going to be like the first scene, and then there's going to be a fast launch that's going to take you around the front of the area where the queue entry is,
Mhm.
so people entering the queue can see all the coaster trains kind of launching into this first turn. And that's going to take us into our first indoor scene, and that's where Hagrid will be. And from everything I'm hearing, it's going to be a Hagrid animatronic, like a
Good.
full-size person, not a screen, not a Musion effect, but an actual animatronic.
That's what I would like to see personally.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be any screens on this ride at all. If there's a pre-show, there might be a Musion scene like Gringotts has, and I'm fine with that. But the actual ride, no screens.
And it makes sense because they're getting under so much fire lately for relying on just screens,
Yeah.
between, I mean, you could go on and on about every example, but yeah, and it makes sense in a way that they'd be like, okay, we can still do it, like kind of to prove everyone that they can still make
Yeah.
a non-screen based ride.
And I think there's some credence to the fact that when it's someone else's property, they do I don't want to say a better job, but you can tell they have eyes on them.
Mhm.
When it's Fast and Furious and it's their own property, they're like, meh, we'll just do whatever we feel like. Or
Right.
Jimmy Fallon, although that one actually I kind of like.
Yeah, it's always my kind of guilty pleasure. It's like fun.
But this one, they have to hold it to a higher standard, I think. And it's just about time to do something a little more practical. So this scene is inside. It's got Hagrid, and he's showing off one of the creatures from the Wizarding World. There's been lots of guesses onto what it is.
She's providing some input as well.
She's across the room. She's like a million miles away.
She's been reading over your document, so she's just adding some information.
The rumor I like is Blast-Ended Scroot, which is not anything from the films, but it's in the books, and it's something that Hagrid, like a hybrid that Hagrid made himself. And when it gets startled or when it's fighting, I think it like blasts. And I like that idea because it matches what happens next. There's a launch out of this little building. So maybe the animal gets startled, or Hagrid's just showing it off and it's like, look what it can do. And then it blasts us right out of the wall, right out of the hut, and into like a super fast, even more than the last one, a launch. And this one, from the track supports, you can really see it's like a figure eight, all bank turns. So we're going to be going pretty fast. From the water drainage permits, you can see that's going to be going over water right here, which was kind of an element in the Dragon Challenge.
Right.
There was a water element in the middle. So after this figure eight, it's going to send us through this kind of trench near the water, and then we go into another launch. So what are we up to? 3 now?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a big circle that takes us into another slow outside show scene where the three-headed dog will be Fluffy.
Now, do you think that'll be an animatronic or a screen? Or, well, I guess if there are no screens, then...
I think it's going to be a limited motion animatronic because it's outside.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be like covered by rockwork and stuff, but I think it's going to be... if you've ever been on Flight of the Hippogriff, there's the Hippogriff that nods to you. I think it'll be the same company that did that one, where it has limited motion, but we'll be going by it, so it doesn't have to be too impressive. But the size of it is going to be full scale. So like imagine the full size Fluffy.
I know that's the impressive part, because like, and they can do it. I mean, they've shown with Kong, King Kong, they can make a gigantic, animatronic with very detailed facial animation. So
we're just going to get a quick look at Fluffy, and then we're going to make another turn to our left, and this one's going to be the second inside scene, and I think it's going to look like a cave. And this is the one that if you've seen the construction photos, it's quite impressive. We start going forward up an incline. They call it a spike because you're just going straight up to a dead end, and it's like 3 or 4 stories tall. We're launched into it, so that's launch number 4. We're launched straight up, so we're like on our backs going towards the sky, but we're inside this dark cave. And we start to slow down because we're losing momentum, and then we fall backwards. And it is like free fall down this 3-story fall. But they call it a family coaster, so I don't know exactly. This is at the high end of family, if you ask me.
Right. Kids are more brave now than I think they used to be. So.
Well, like Expedition Everest is kind of a pretty thrilling one, but it's still considered family. I think this is along those lines. So we're falling backwards out of the cave, but there was a track switch behind us. So now we're just going straight instead of turning back toward Fluffy. And we're going backwards, and we hit another launch, which launches us into a 360 turn upward. That's launch number 5. And this takes us into the third and final inside scene. And I think it's going to be like vines are surrounding us. It's getting darker, and the only vines I can think of that are from the Wizarding World is the Devil's Snare. Right. And the Devil's Snare like grips onto everything that comes in contact with it. So it's going to grab our train, and then we're going to stop. And then when we stop, I don't know how, but somehow we're going to get free, and we're going to fall straight down. And that's the vertical track drop track, which... if you've ever been to Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, Verbolten has it, or 13 at Alton Towers, which is the same manufacturer, I think. It's like a mini Tower of Terror moment where you drop a story and a half straight down on the track.
Wow. Yeah. I've never been a big fan of the straight free fall stuff, but I guess on a coaster, it just never seems as, severe versus like a Tower of Terror where like I don't mind one drop, I guess. I just always have a iffy time with like the ones where it's drop, where it's like constant.
And it's going to be, I think it's going to be exciting because it's like all this fast stuff, and then you go up and you go backwards, and then you stop and then you drop. And as soon as you drop, we're going to be launched one last launch, and this time forward, because we went into there going backwards. So we're going to drop and then go forward. So instead of having to do a track switch or rotate or anything like that, you just go in, drop, launch out forward. And this launch probably going to be the biggest one because the track has to go up really high and go over the cave, and it takes us to the end of the ride. So that's 6 launches, and I can't think of another coaster that has that many launched elements.
No, neither can I. I mean, it sounds like it'll be... I mean, I guess I'm surprised that I'd always heard the rumor that they were going to theme it around the new Fantastic Beasts movies, or the new series of Harry Potter films. So it's interesting that they're going to implement elements from the originals, to me at least.
It's keeping in with the time of Hogsmeade, because Hogsmeade and
True.
Diagon Alley take place in different times in the stories, and this is earlier in the story. And then Diagon Alley is toward the end of the Harry Potter series stories.
Right, that makes sense, because especially with J.K. Rowling, because she's all like, she has, like so much control. So I could see her saying like, no, you're going to keep it themed, because she's all about keeping the theming. So that
and so
makes
far, the
sense.
Fantastic Beasts, the first one took place in New York. I think the second one's going to be in Paris. So these aren't locations that are from the original series. So it wouldn't make sense to go from Hogwarts and Hogsmeade to Paris or New York or something. Mm-hmm. So I think if there's going to be Fantastic Beasts, and there probably will be, it'll be in the new park that they're planning for the new property that they bought. Which I was going to mention it later, but yesterday a trademark was filed, or it was found, for something that Universal trademarked the term Fantastic Worlds.
Oh, that's interesting.
So if I was going to name a new park, I could see Universal's Fantastic Worlds as being kind of like an Islands of Adventure, of a grouping of different IP-based lands. Or maybe it's just going to be the new land, the name for lands based on the Fantastic Beasts series, because it's got the same word in it.
Right. That makes sense. I mean, they're really stepping up their game, because for a long time I feel like they were kind of like, the underdog, and they had some good attractions, but they struggled with theming. I think that was their biggest issue for a long time.
Yeah, there was a lot of here's a building and it has a facade, but you can still see all the building, and it's like we're in a film studio.
Right. And there wasn't anything like Indiana Jones where you were just completely immersed 100%. I assume even while writing Jaws, you could probably look across and see, Back to the Future, or, what I assume, or, like when you're on Jaws, you could probably turn around and see the other parts of Universal.
Jaws wasn't that bad. But you could, the beginning and end, yeah, definitely. Once you get to the middle, it was pretty good. The boathouse and the fire scene.
Right. Whereas with Disney, they're very good about keeping you, like when you're in line for Pirates, you're in New Orleans, or at least in terms of Disneyland.
Yeah.
And, when you're on Splash Mountain, you're in Critter Country, so it's like you have a hard time kind of feeling like you're not in one of the areas, but Universal's kind of struggled with that in certain aspects. So it makes sense that they're kind of, they're just really going all for.
I think the new park, if I was to guess, is going to be kind of their version of the Magic Kingdom. Because the first one, they did the studio park with the different lands based on backlots, and the Islands of Adventure does the lagoon loop design.
Right.
I think we're due for a hub and spoke design. And I think that Universal would like to have a little more family-friendly fare, and a lot more, I'm hoping, dark rides. Like they're keeping the adventure park adventurous with the coasters. Like this is a coaster replacing a coaster, and if the rumors I'm hearing are true, they're talking about adding another coaster to Jurassic Park at Islands of Adventure. So this could be like their adventure park, and then maybe the fourth park or third park, depending on if you count Volcano Bay.
Yeah, I've heard some rumblings about the Jurassic World Park coaster or whatever. That's what's going on.
Yeah, and we can talk about that. There's not much more about the Harry Potter coaster except that it opens in 2019, probably in the summer, and one day here they'll announce the name of it so I can stop calling it the Harry Potter coaster.
But that's still a pretty quick turnaround for them to, I feel like they just demolished it not that long ago.
Yeah,
and then,
no, it was in the fall of last year, so it's definitely going, and half the track is up now. And once all the track's up, they're going to build those 3 structures and retheme the queue, and they're good to go. Well, they'll have to plant 1,000 trees, but that shouldn't take too long.
Right, and I assume they're not going to plant them and wait for them to grow. They're going to grab a bunch of pre-existing trees. And
Toy Story Land is any indication, they went from dirt to trees in a matter of 2 weeks. It was pretty impressive.
So what's going on with the Jurassic Park side of things?
Well, I don't have as much solid information on this, but for years there's been rumors of a new coaster going to Jurassic Park. Originally, it was going to be like a wooden kiddie coaster themed to like an amber mine. So, because there is a little area at Camp Jurassic now where you go in and there's amber on the walls and there's caves and stuff, and it's beautiful in there. So the idea would be this is just like a mine cart type coaster through a mine filled with amber.
You'll have to wonder. I don't think I've actually entered because you can't get on the Pterodon flyer.
Oh, you have to check it out. Behind Pteranodon flyers, like right behind it near the exit, there are these caves, and it is beautiful. It is like Tom Sawyer Island, but
really?
Mixed with the lighting effects of Thunder Mountain. It's beautiful in there.
That's what I love about, like, even though I live near the Orlando parks, like, there's always, I don't know, like, aspects that I still haven't explored. Probably because, like, I always assumed, oh, like, that's a kiddie area and that I'm not allowed on the ride anyways, which I still do not understand that rule of that you have to have.
Line, I think the line would get too long. Also, there's a weight distribution issue where if an adult goes on that's over a certain weight, it would have to be an empty car with the adult.
Right.
So really only an adult and a child could go on the ride for the weight.
I always thought I could bring like a sack of potatoes or something at least just because I want to go on it.
I borrowed someone's kid once so I could go on it. It's a really nice ride. It's short though, but it's nice.
I guess you could do that. Just be like, hi, not to be creepy, can I borrow Timmy for like 5 minutes?
No, it was a friend. It was friend. Someone I knew.
Yeah, I'll have to wait for like my nieces and nephews or something to come down.
But you definitely should explore the area, especially if you like Jurassic Park, because I love the architecture.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that next time.
There's like a lookout tower that's themed to the original raptor pen from the first movie. And just looking up at that tower, you can kind of see it from King Kong, but looking up at that tower and the electrified fence gates, it's pretty cool. Because that's all based on the first movie.
Yeah, that'll be my number one stop the next time I get over there in the next couple weeks.
Just don't give up until you find those caves, because they're a little hard to find.
Well, that's part of what probably makes it special too, is that it's not.
No one's in there. It's like all to yourselves.
There's no giant sign saying, here's where everything is.
I mean, it looks like you just go into the exit for the ride, so no one walks toward it usually.
That's probably why I never ventured in there in the first place.
So next door to that used to be the Triceratops encounter.
Right.
And since they closed the Triceratops encounter, or Triceratops Discovery Trail, I think it was called in its later years, they've opened the Raptor encounter.
Right.
Which Blue from Jurassic World just made her debut, and she's incredible.
She looks because the the original one I always kind of laughed at. I'm like, the eyes don't. It looks like a hand puppet that you buy at like Target or something. But this one
looks like a Jim Henson puppy dog type character. There's something cute about the original one. Yeah. This one is intimidating. This is very
I can tell
realistic
from the pictures.
And she blinks now, and her mouth closes all the way. That's like the biggest thing to me. The Jurassic Park raptors, their mouths could close, and the Raptor encounter one, when it couldn't close its mouth all the way, so you could always see its teeth. And there's something creepy about it when you can't see the raptor's teeth.
Right.
Like when it does that lip snarl in the first movie. Like now it looks like that.
Well, it had more of a cartoony appearance in general, but
it was friendlier.
Like just looking at the pictures, it's like terrifying. Like the texture of the skin and the teeth and the eyes and man.
So they built that 3 years ago for when the first Jurassic World came out, and they've added Blue now for when the second movie's coming out.
Right.
But that only takes up like 5% of the total land that was the Triceratops Trail. It is just right at the very
I've always wondered, so because I again never got to ride it or walk through it. So how much? Because can you walk me through and everyone else briefly the Triceratops encounter?
Sure.
Because I think we all kind of, realize that the Q is where that big stone of the Triceratops skeleton is.
You would enter there at that big stone photo op. It used to say Triceratops encounter. And you would go through kind of a winding, it would act both as a queue and also just a walk-through attraction until you got to the end. You kind of see the game warden station.
Okay.
They would have props. They big boxes like the beginning of Jurassic Park with the raptors delivered in.
Did they shake?
No, they're like empty. They're in between being used at this time. But also and I think it might have been the screen used one. I'm not sure, but the feeding apparatus for the raptor scene in the first movie where they have the cow lowered in and it's all tore up when it comes back up. The tore up one was in the line.
Oh, wow. I could totally see that being from the movie. It makes sense.
Yeah, and just a few months ago, it was still there. You can kind of, if you
Really?
look through the trees, you could see things. You could see the props in the walkthrough area. It was never really dismantled.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
It
But
was even used
now
in
it
a,
probably is, right?
oh yeah, now it is.
Oh dang,
It
I missed my
it was
chance.
even used in a commercial recently for Universal, the like vacation like you mean it commercials or whatever. They actually show a scene with the CG raptors, and when it shows the guy, he's standing in that part with the little game warden station. So they filmed, I think it was in December or January. So it got one more use before they
So how many years then was that just sitting there?
uh it was open periodically. I don't have it in front of me. I could open up on Wikipedia, but I think it closed like a decade ago, but then it opened for a year and then closed again in the early 2000s.
Hmm.
Um, and then it sat there for the last 6 years or whatever. If you search YouTube, people who are brave
Right, yeah,
slash
Adam
and
the
or
Woo.
dumb enough
Yeah.
to post their face on a video exploring it, urban
Well, that's
explorers.
probably why. Well, I mean, I love Adam the Woo, great content creator, but I think that's where he got in trouble because he did that where he
And the
actually snuck.
Nickelodeon.
Yeah, he snuck into, and they still had at least one of. I think
Yeah.
they had one of the Triceratops still, and then between that and the Nickelodeon one, they kind of
Yeah, and I think that they when they reopened it, they had just one, but originally there was multiple
three. Yeah.
stables. And some of the videos I've seen on YouTube, it's creepy, like they're missing their faces and stuff.
Oh yeah, like you
Um,
couldn't pay me to do that at night, like. And I'm always
but
surprised. How do you think, like, little side trail? How do you think people, like security, like they have people everywhere, cameras everywhere? How are these people getting into those areas, even as recently as like a couple years ago? Like, do they just not keep a
well,
lot of eyes on it?
it's off an employee path, and I don't think no, I don't think there's cameras on that. In recent years, one of the stables was being used for entertainment for the Raptor Encounter people, like as a backstage dressing room and break area. Another one was being used for storage.
So
And because it's not a guest area, I guess they just felt they didn't have to put a camera on it.
so you can
Because you're
kind of
supposed to,
you can kind of sneak in there like
if
pretty
you could
undetected.
pretend you're like a team member going through the backstage
Oh
gate
yeah,
and then get in, that'd be one thing. If you were to do it by the hot dog stand in the back, you might get noticed.
right.
Which is where I would look through the foliage to see if there's still stuff back there. It's behind the hot dog stand
Man,
across
I wish
from
I knew
the
that.
main ride.
I should have looked at because I've always known about it, but I never thought about it because I've been here for almost 2 years.
I
Or over
mean, there
2
wouldn't
years.
be much to see, just the back of a Jurassic Park crate and
Oh, still,
if
I love that. I don't care. It could be a tree or like I just love seeing extinct. Like I love going to Animal Kingdom and seeing like the remnants of the the fire breathing dragon rock wall that
yeah,
no one.
covered in vines now.
It's I understand because they don't want to get rid of it, but they're kind of like wanting to cover it in a way, so they're letting nature do its thing.
More
But
Pandora-ish, I
but
guess.
man, it's like I wish I could have ridden it at least once. I know it wasn't like an exciting
It
attraction.
was not that
It
great.
was-
I
you
was
got
there. It was not great. It was pretty awful, actually. Just mosquitoes and boring spieling, and like because there was two different ways you could go, and one
Right.
had the iguanodon in the river in
Yep.
front of Dinosaur, but you could see that from walking by Dinosaur. You didn't have to go on the river ride. And
Yeah,
then
and
the other one had the cave, and it was just a fire effect. And by then they had already removed the dead knights, so it was
yeah.
just a fire
Well,
effect.
that only lasted for employee previews, from what I
Well,
was
yeah,
told.
I went for the employee preview. I actually saw the big red dead elephant.
You saw Big Red Dead Red. Wow, that's crazy.
I remember getting off that and getting so angry because that and the baby elephant
You
are
s-
not real, and they kept saying that Animal Kingdom is filled with
Yep.
only real animals.
That's
This
the
safari is
problem.
filled with only real animals.
Right.
And I got off and I told the cast members, I was like, you really can't say that because you have fake animals at the end of the ride.
And that is exactly why it lasted like 3 days. Like you're the
But
first
Baby
person
Red
I've talked
lasted
to.
like a
Yeah.
decade, I think.
Yeah, because they just moved her to the end, and they were like, oh, they just mentioned her being captured on the thing.
And you could see her trunk in the back of the truck, and they're like,
Oh yeah, she was a
We saved her.
full bodied, like.
but why have an
animatronic.
animatronic if you claim this is a real animal attraction? Which
Yeah,
is
I think
why
it was.
I'm glad it's gone.
Like I see what there. It's just funny when you look at. I think in one of my broken and abandoned videos, I kind of went through it because at first, yeah, they had the dead elephant, which I was like, holy crap. And it was like,
it looked real
yeah,
too. I've seen a picture recently and I was like, I can't believe that was
yeah.
on the ride.
And then they had, and then they scrapped that. But over the years, like the plot became more and more like less about the elephant, to where at the end it was just like, oh, look, there's a baby elephant. And so, they slowly, over like a decade.
And they have a little display near the elephant scene now with poacher stuff. And it's like poaching is a problem. And they still mention it, but not to the extent that it was a full storyline and there was a chase.
Yep. They had the Jeep that would race by and like shoot at you. And like that, I read that got closed down because it got struck by lightning so many times.
Oh,
because it's out in the middle of... for a time, I like knew all about that. It's funny when you do research for something and then like it kind of slowly goes out your brain, but it's a fascinating like story of like what it used to have in there.
All the waterfalls in the last part. Now you go through this little waterfall section. I like that. It's beautiful. I think it's a nice addition. And
there used to be geysers, and I mean that whole last period was, and that's the problem was it was like, oh, a leisure kind of tour through the jungle, and then all of a sudden it randomly became, quick, we got to go save the elephant. And it became like this chase ride, and people were like, wait, well, I thought this was a safari, and got confused.
Other than the bridge collapsing under you, that everything was real.
I finally got to, I'd always been told they got rid of that as well, but I think it was like maybe 6 months ago or something that I wrote it, and it still works once in a while, I guess.
It back. Yeah, it's not always working, but I noticed it was back after being gone for years or a couple of years.
Which is funny, because again, it's like, taking elements that used to be there. And I read someone said that the red elephant is still there. It's just like in a cast member area, like inside one of the trucks.
That, yeah.
But yeah, it's funny. How did we get on?
I don't know. So
we were talking about the
Triceratops.
you get
to the stable, whichever one they lead you into, and they do like a 10-minute presentation where it couldn't be. It's like what would be the most boring way to meet a dinosaur, and it's like, well, we're doing a checkup. It's a medical checkup,
right? Like from the movie.
Except the movie was like sick and breathing, and this one's just kind of like he's normal, and he's like, oh, you got to poke me and prod me. You're checking my eyeball. It snots on people. And I only did it like a couple times. I really enjoyed the queue more than I did the actual Triceratops. And they spent like $3 million each on these Triceratops.
Man.
It just wasn't worth it to me. I like the hatching Velociraptor better in the Discovery Center.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of the times it's a cool concept on paper. And then, like I would love to go through that queue. Obviously, I won't get to, but the ride the attraction itself, I could see kind of being underwhelming. You're like, this is it?
Well, once you've done it once, it's like, it's not like a ride. Like Jurassic Park, the ride, not only do you get to see dinosaurs, but there's like, the element of the drop at the end, and it moves. And this is just, you're standing in a stable in a pile of hay, and there's a guy doing the exact same checkup every single time.
I love Jurassic Park, the ride, but I don't know why, I don't mind like Splash Mountain or Dudley Do Right or those kind of drops, but Jurassic Park just get like, I hate that, because it's it's almost like a free fall. And it's
when they built it, it was the steepest drop of any water flume ride.
Yeah, I believe it. I hate it. Like I don't know, like drops like that and going upside down are like the two things I just don't. I love going fast. I don't mind it,
but I hate getting wet. Like I want to see dinosaurs without.
Oh, see, I love getting wet. I hate drops and going upside down. But
in recent months, some people informed me that they were taking out all the props at the Triceratops encounter plot, and then one day they just put up work walls, and the rumors of a coaster came back. But this time it's not like a kiddie coaster; it's a coaster. And I guess my logic was, they took down 2 coasters when they got rid of Dragon Challenge, and they're putting the Potter coaster, that's 1. So this would be like another one if you count Dueling Dragons as 2 different coasters. I mean, they were technically 2 different rides. And there's just recently I found survey markings in front of the Discovery Center. So if you take that plot of land that the Triceratops encounter was on, it's about the size of Camp Jurassic and the Pteranodon Flyer. So it's a big chunk of land. And then there's markings and survey and little ribbons tied around trees all the way down to the waterfront in front of Discovery Center. So my thinking, and what some other people are thinking, is that we're going to see a coaster with a load platform in the center of the old Triceratops Trail, and then the coaster goes down in front of the lagoon, in front of the over the lagoon in front of the Discovery Center. So
and it would probably just be like an all outdoor kind
of like a Hulk type thing where it goes over the lagoon, and it might have a launch, but maybe not an upward launch like the Hulk, maybe a different kind of launch, or maybe it'll have a lift hill. Some people still think it's going to be a wooden coaster. Others are thinking maybe the Flying Dinosaur from Universal Japan, which is like a winged coaster, like Manta at SeaWorld.
Yeah, I could see it being one of those things where the queue is really immersive, and then maybe like the launching part is pretty immersive, and then, or they have some kind of props or whatever, and then once you're on the ride, then it's the coaster part, and then when you come back, it's like, oh, you survived. You know,
right, exactly.
Every ride has that.
Because like the Potter thing is going to be highly immersive with show scenes and everything, and this would be more like the Hulk, I think, where it's just, this is a fun coaster that happens to be in the Jurassic Park theme park.
Right.
Is my thinking.
So was the I'm trying to visualize it. So like the Discovery Center, the Triceratops Trail would have been to the left. If you're looking at it
from the front, yeah, it would have been on the left side.
If you're looking at it from the
lagoon, like you're standing at the entrance to Islands of Adventure at Port Adventure, and you're looking across the lagoon, and there's the Discovery Center. Right. Just to the left of that is the Triceratops
to the
Trail.
left. I guess I'll have to look it up on Google, because you would enter through that. Oh wait, no, I'm getting it mixed up. Yeah, I'll have to go on Google and see where that area was. But then it was pretty much right next door to the Pteranodon or the Camp Jurassic then.
Yeah, so if you're looking at it from across the lagoon, like with Hulk's on your left and Seuss is on your right.
Right.
If you're looking straight ahead, like Kong is on the left, then Camp Jurassic and Pteranodon Flyers, then Triceratops Encounter, and then the Discovery Center. And Discovery Center is set lower than the upper level where the Triceratops was, or the Raptor is, because you can enter through the back of the Discovery Center, and you'll be in the burger restaurant and the gift shop, and you'll have to take stairs down to go to the first level of the Discovery Center that looks like the rotunda in the movie. And when you walk outside the rotunda in front of the Discovery Center, you're down lower.
Right.
So I think that the coaster would start up by kind of where Raptor Encounter is, would be the entrance, and the coaster would go around that area and then come down over the lagoon, and I'm guessing obstruct our view of the Discovery Center to some extent, which it definitely does in Japan when they built the Flying Dinosaur. So I could see something like that happening here too.
Yeah, and it really does need something, like in between, because that Jurassic Park area is actually it's a pretty big area, but they only have like the one attraction and then the kid attraction, so there's space to do something.
Right, and they had the Triceratops thing, but it just wasn't worth the money being spent on it for how little popularity it had. People would rather do all the rides than wait in line to see a robot. I think that the Raptor Encounter has been more successful. It's right there on the edge. You can see it as you're walking by, or you can hear it.
Yeah.
Although I've been noticing lately, people get in line, and then the team member will walk through the line and say, like, this is just for taking photos of the Raptor. This is not an attraction. This is not a ride. This is not a show. And then some people will leave. They're like, oh, I thought this was the ride, because the line gets long.
Oh, yeah. That totally makes sense, because you might think that's just like part of the queue into the ride or something like that.
So, and then one of the other rumors is that it might be a Raptor-based roller coaster.
That makes sense with the new
Raptor name. Yeah. And that does go into it.
I was going to say, are they going to change or are they going to change Orlando's version of Jurassic Park?
We know Hollywood is definitely their Jurassic Park ride and area is being changed to Jurassic World. What's crazy is I uploaded a video because I had heard that rumor for Islands of Adventure. I uploaded a video, and 2 hours later they announced that for Hollywood, and I wasn't sure because I don't follow Hollywood that much.
Right.
And I was like, oh, that's a rumor I heard for here. So if it's happening there, it's probably happening here. I just think it's going to happen a year later for here. I think they're going to get it first there. because we already have because our Potter coaster isn't built yet. We're down an attraction. I
Makes
think when
sense.
that's open, so a year from now, they might close, or after next summer, they might close our Jurassic Park ride, turn it into Jurassic World, and that would open with the new Jurassic Park coaster at the same time. So imagine all of Islands of Adventure Jurassic Park being rebranded as Jurassic World, with the new Jurassic World River Adventure and a new roller coaster and the updated Discovery Center all at the same time in 2020.
Which to me is, again, I always try to see I understand, but I guess I would almost bet my bottom dollar that means that they'll take the Jurassic Park signage and do the Jurassic World signage.
Yeah, everything goes from red and orange to blue and silver.
It's such a hard, like, not balance, but like you want to hold on to the past because like you love Jurassic Park, right?
Let the past die. Kill it if you have to.
I know, like I love Jurassic Park. Like it's one of my favorite movies of all time. Same with Indiana Jones. So if like they wanted to update Temple of Doom, I'd be like, so like, because I know they want to do a whole new slew of Indiana Jones movies, like like everything now. And with Jurassic World, it's like hard because it's like I love the originals, but I do understand that it's a new generation. They're not catering to people like me who want to hold on to the movie from 1993, because kids are growing up on Jurassic World, and Jurassic World, merchandise, and so it makes sense. But it's like it's sad, like when you see those kinds of things go, and
I mean, we would still have the river adventure. It would just be adding a mosasaur and Indominus Rex to it, and maybe removing the Dilophosaurs.
It definitely needs bottom line is it needs some
and
love
Hollywood
and care.
needed it first, so I can understand why. Ours just got a pretty good update, but it still feels very 1998.
Because they're not going to throw a bunch of money on it just to update. Kind of like E.T. Right. They're not going to throw a bunch of money to like update all the animatronics. No. If they were ever going to, it would be
animatronics. Do you mean the Sears mannequin dressed in cop outfits?
I'm always surprised you don't see like a string like pulling them.
like they're on I think they're on a record player turntable.
Probably. I wonder. What do you think about? Because I've heard that Spielberg. I don't know if this is true. That he said like, do not touch that ride in terms of like, don't get rid of it.
That's the rumor.
I don't
more like,
believe
the story
that.
Is more like he was really sad when Hollywood closed it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, at least I could still go to Orlando. And he would be really sad if they closed that too. He also gets a cut of every ticket to all Universal parks around the world.
Gee, that guy's filth. I love. He's my favorite. One of my favorite directors.
Oh, yeah.
But man, he is loaded. Like
I think he gets like 5%. He's a huge percent of all tickets, because when they opened the Orlando park, it was the first one that was just like a full-fledged theme park, and they needed his help from Back to the Future, Jaws,
E.T., Jurassic Park.
Even later with Men in Black. Like all these movies are under the Amblin banner, or he executive produced them. So he was instrumental in the park being a success.
Even from that alone, he would be filthy rich. But he got, like, from Saving Private Ryan, he got, like, so much of the percentages, and Jurassic... He always does percentages, which is smart. I mean, I think he's worth, like... His yacht... Like, if you ever look up Steven Spielberg's yacht, it's insane. It's like a cruise ship all to himself. But...
I don't think anyone else gets a cut of all theme park sales. Like, that was a smart move.
I wonder if John Williams gets, because his music's all over the park. Well, used to be more so all over the park. So I wonder if he gets a pretty decent.
Well, it's funny because he did Harry Potter, so it still replaced it with himself.
So what do you think? Like maybe not 5 years from now, but 10 years down the line, I always try to think like, what do you think E.T.'s future is? Because on the one hand, they're not going to dump millions of dollars into an attraction that doesn't get that busy, that's on such an older movie. But at the same time, you can't just let that go. It's going to get more and more dated and more out of, technology. Like, what do you think?
I think it has 5 years left in it. I think we'll see Men in Black close before that closes.
Right. But you do think eventually it will close and maybe get replaced with something? Or do you think they'll try to maybe just
with the new
park?
And that was another thing I was going to say. I think Jurassic World, the rumor was it was going to get a new land in the new park. But it really feels like that plan has changed, and that they're just because if they had put Jurassic World in the new park, they would still have Jurassic Park at the old park, and
Right.
they would like, what do they do? Close that whole thing down? It's just easier to rebrand the existing land than add a new land and then get rid of the old one.
Right.
And I think they have so much on their plate that they don't have to worry about ET for right now.
True.
You know, they have a whole nother park to build. I think they'll close Shrek 4D because they'll build something new in like a DreamWorks Fantasyland in the new park. So maybe Shrek will get a new ride there, and that isn't just a 4D DVD extra.
Yeah, what happened to, because I'd always, for a long time, I was hearing that like it was for sure going to be like Kung Fu Panda, and then that seemed to have died.
Hollywood. That's opening right now in Hollywood.
Oh, okay.
And it looks amazing.
I get them mixed up sometimes, like because I used to live in LA, so I followed LA stuff. Really, I lived down the street from Universal, literally down the street. So now it's like, now that I'm in Orlando, sometimes I don't keep up with the California news as much.
And that does look awesome. The DreamWorks theater starring Kung Fu Panda in Hollywood, but I don't think we're getting that here. Maybe in the new park, you know. But I think Shrek will probably still close down and be replaced with something else. There's been rumors of a Secret Life of Pets attraction, which I think Hollywood is also getting.
They could do How to Train Your Dragons, right? Isn't that DreamWorks as well?
Yeah, but I hold off on that one until the new park where they have lots of land to build it out.
Make a coaster out of it.
So, yeah, maybe Dragon Challenge comes back. Dueling Dragons as How to Train Your Dueling Dragons.
They totally could, and they'd save so much money by using the same plans and using the same
I think,
track layout.
It would be cool to see a suspended coaster inside a building, though. So I think that might be the route they go with that one. And another idea was a Minions ride. Like they have a Despicable Me Minion Mayhem
right
across the street from Shrek, and they were talking about doing another Minion ride over there. So it's kind of like a whole Minion area. So things like that we might see, because that's a weak attraction, Shrek 4D. It's also surrounded by a bunch of 4D things. So maybe if we're going to get rid of one of them, it's going to be that one.
Right.
You know, we're not going to get rid of Fallon. We're not going to get rid of Despicable Me so soon. If we do, we'd just rebrand it as something else for the fourth time.
Yeah, I always think, like, what would happen if Jimmy Fallon, I mean, I'm sure he's contractually obligated, but eventually he's going to, you know, change hosts. So I always thought, like, wouldn't it be crazy if he was like, I'm done, and then they have to like immediately like refilm everything?
What's great well, what's great is that you can keep it as 30 Rock and keep the first floor as is and just add a new thing for the new host.
Yep, because all the lobby stuff is interchangeable pretty much.
Yeah, it looks like Rockefeller 30 Rock. I mean, it has the same tiles, even the carpet in the elevator is exactly the same, is what I've heard. So
I really wish they stopped. I'm glad I got to do the soft opening. I don't know if you did too, but for a long time, or for that period, they would give you. They still give you the card, right? The color card.
But they tell you to go upstairs now.
Yeah, they would hold you in the lobby, and you would wait for your color, and then they would open the rope for you, and it was like this kind of cool little thing, but it got so congested, and it was just like a fire hazard. So they don't do it anymore, but I'm glad, again, those things that you get to only experience in like previews, because that's the point of them. They're seeing what works and what doesn't.
Yeah.
It's just sad though, because now that thing, it's
now
like
the whole
ding,
first floor is
ding,
empty. Everyone just goes straight up to second.
And it doesn't make sense anymore, because now when the lights change, you're like, wait, why are the lights changing color? You know, and it was cool because you'd be like, oh, I'm purple. The room's purple now. So then you would go up the stairs.
I mean, they still do the tickets. You just skips the first floor now. It used to be you wait for your color on the first floor, then you wait for your color on the second floor. Now it's just wait for your color in general.
And I liked it because then it kind of forced you to look around the lobby, you know, kind of like take everything in. But again, it got really congested, like really bad. So I totally get why they made the change. But that's the point of previews, I guess, is to see what. So 2019 for Harry Potter.
And maybe as early as 2020 for the Jurassic World, maybe a new coaster, maybe the new river adventure, but in time for it maybe 2021 at the latest, but still in time for the third Jurassic World film.
Oh, they're already planning on a third one?
I believe it.
They probably are, I assume.
Oh, no, they announced a date already.
Oh.
They did last year. let's see.
I mean, doesn't the planet blow up? I mean, the island blow up? I mean, I've only seen the trailer, but like,
Well, now see it's I don't want to give any spoilers away, and I haven't seen the movie yet, but
yeah,
it
me
is
neither.
called Jurassic World for a reason.
That makes sense.
2021, I think, is the release date. So the new land will be open in time for the third Jurassic World film. That's at least that seems to be the consensus on the rumors.
Yeah, I've heard the new movie's kind of but the trailers, I guess you could kind of tell. I mean, really, it's a plot around.
It's dinosaurs chasing people. I'm gonna love it.
Yeah,
You can't
you gotta
get
shut your
any
brain
worse
off.
than Jurassic Park 3. At least Jurassic Park, at least The Lost World and at least Jurassic World had a third act. Like Jurassic World 3, there is no third act, and that's all I really want in a dinosaur film is a complete story.
But you see, but Jurassic Park 3 is a comedy. Like, that's how I always imagine it.
It
I mean,
ends like a Quest for the Holy Grail, where it just suddenly stops. It's like, oh, the military's here. Movie's over, folks. Bye.
well, actually, I guess we can wrap it up this time rather
Okay.
than go. I think last time was like 2 hours because we went off so much. But yeah, a lot of stuff to look forward to. Is there actually really quick? Are there any updates about Nintendo Land, or is that pretty much?
Yeah. See, I was going to bring that up when we talked about ET because from what I saw from the Nintendo plans, it worked around ET and left ET there. And the Nintendo plans, I mean, that was my first video to get 1 million views. Just got 1 million last
I
week.
remember that. Yeah.
Or 2 weeks ago. And the plans were set in stone. Like it was definitely going to happen. They even put up work walls around ET so they could start tearing down Fievel's Playland last year. But then all of a sudden, at the last minute, the work walls came down and they recently just refurbished and repainted all of the Kids Zone.
Huh.
They repainted Animal Actors, which was supposed to be torn down. They repainted Curious George, was supposed to be teared down. Even Fievel got a little bit of a refresh, and Barney got, they had to recast actors. So it looks like Super Nintendo World might have gotten pushed to the new park.
That makes sense, but then it's like you have that dead area of, Barney and Feifel
And I think they'll replace that in time, maybe with I'd love to see Trolls, DreamWorks Trolls get an area with that looks like their little colorful village, and you play that song from Justin Timberlake on loop and kids will love it, because I don't think kids really know, other than Curious George, what all that stuff is. Barney's not really on TV anymore. Certainly Fievel has kind of fell off the face of the earth. And I love Fievel Goes West. That was like one of my favorite films when I was younger. And Animal Actors still actually packs in a crowd once in a while. So it's good to have something for kids like that.
Right.
But, and then there's rumors that maybe Pokemon will get an area over there instead. But these are all like later phases. The first phase of Super Nintendo World, is supposed to be being built right now like it is in Japan. But with it being pushed to maybe the new park, it's going to be a few years later than we expected. And the analogy I use is Jurassic Park, the ride, was originally being designed for Universal Studios Florida, where Men in Black is now, because it wasn't there back then. I mean, it was like being designed for that area because that park didn't have a water ride. And next door, Islands of Adventure, at the time, they were calling it Cartoon World. And Cartoon World was going to have Looney Tunes characters and DC Comics and all kinds of other stuff.
Right.
But the plans with Warner Brothers kind of fell through, and they ended up keeping like Seuss Landing and Toon Lagoon, but they changed out the other ones for Marvel. They changed out the other ones and they wanted to anchor that new park with something. And they're like, you know what? Let's just take Jurassic Park's plans and give it its own land and make it bigger, flesh it out, build the Discovery Center. So instead of getting the Jurassic Park ride in 1995, like we were planning on it, we got it in 98 when Islands of Adventure opened. And I think that's what's happening here, is that we were going to get Super Nintendo World, but now we're going to have to wait. And I think Japan was already going to get it first, but now Hollywood might get it before Orlando, and we're going to get it with the new park. It'll be bigger, but we're going to have to wait.
Right. And it's actually funny you bring that up. For like, it's a long story, but I've had a video in development since like August of last year, exploring Project X, what Universal was going to be, like what you mentioned with the Gotham City and all that. but I've
the
been
cartoon world.
Yeah, but I made it's a huge story. I got all these documents from someone of these like internal memos and stuff about the plans and blueprints and things like that.
And there are a lot of stories like that would have I think it just fell through as a matter of negotiations and
Yeah,
arguing over tiny amounts of money. And they're like, you know what, forget it. We're just going to go with someone else. And they called up Marvel,
yeah.
who was struggling at the time, and they did it for less.
But it was going to be incredible. Like when you look at the plans and they were going to have this water show that would have, I mean, just like topped Phantasmic, and I mean, it was so ridiculous. And they
I
had,
think I remember a whole Gotham City area
yep,
with a penguin ride
yep,
that was like a coaster.
yeah. First, it was
Uh,
going to be a Gotham City on its own, and then and then eventually it merged into
Metropolis.
Metropolis, and
Yeah.
but because there's this ton, it was going to be completely different. Anyways, enough of my rambling. Thank you so much again for coming. I love talking about theme parks and especially rumors, and you learn a little bit about the history of the parks and a little bit about like its potential future.
Yeah, everything's in flux, so you never know. With there's so much going on and a whole new park to fill with rides. So who knows what the future holds?
Yep, and it's going to be very exciting. So everyone, again, you can follow Alicia on YouTube and check out her videos. She has a lot of really great, fascinating videos about like some of the stuff we've talked about construction wise and rumors. YouTube.com/Alicia Stella. You can also find her on Twitter at twitter.com/Orlando Park Stop. And then I forget the website that you
It's
write.
just OrlandoParkstop.com.
Okay.
Is where I post my more thorough articles about things.
Right. So the videos are kind of like are they more of a summary of the articles?
Well, that's how it started out, but now it's kind of switched the other way, where I'm focusing more on the YouTube.
Oh, cool.
And I write for lots of different websites, so I always share all of my articles on OrlandoParkstop.com that I write for other websites too. So it's an easy place to see all of my work.
Yeah. So check out her stuff, and again, congratulations for hitting the milestone of 10K, and here's to hopefully hitting the milestone of 20K and 30K in a third of the time, because that seems to be how it works. Once you hit that mark,
Here's hoping.
Just make more of those, like it's always the trendy subjects that get the millions and stuff. So you just gotta, and it makes sense. And with everything going on, like, it's the perfect
there's lots
time.
to talk about. And just to comment on my Nintendo video, even though the location may have moved, those rides are still probably going to be the same. They're just going to add more to them. So it's still a good video to see all the different rides that will be at the Super Nintendo World, like Mario Kart.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you next time on Yesterworld.